Hello everyone, welcome to the Escape Pod. I'm Josiah.
I'm Nathan.
And today we're going to talk about the Highlander franchise, which Nathan and I recently kind of just out of the blue were like, it's Nathan was kind of like, I haven't seen Highlander, I've heard it's good. And then I was like, I haven't watched all the Highlander movies. I should go and watch them, even though I know most of them are terrible.
Yeah, I was coming off the tail end of my King Arthur watch through. Mm-hmm. And I had it in my mind that there was some sort of connection with King Arthur and Highlander.
It kind of makes sense. The sword focus.
Yeah, the sword focus, I guess. And I was like, I've heard these are, dumb and aged horribly and very ham 80s, 90s stuff. But, it's got Sean Connery. I'll watch it.
Yeah. And then we watched the first Highlander, which...
Director's cut. The only version.
The director's cut. But we watched it, and my memories of... Because so prior to this, I had only seen Highlander, the theatrical Highlander 2, and then Highlander the Source. So I was kind of like, hey, I remember Highlander 1 being, okay, but not really too complex of a story, and the choreography is not the best. And I was like, but it was kind of an interesting movie. But then going back to it, I was, surprised at how much real emotional depth and actual character development and good stuff there is in this movie.
Yeah.
And visually how nice it is.
Yeah, the cinematography and editing immediately stood out. It had this feeling, not tonally, but kind of like with Terminator, where it's this is the idea behind this is over the top and not in line with reality, but the amount of effort that went into the design, the performances actually being fairly good, just marks it as this. Yeah, this is a really good movie, but there's just something that keeps it from being great.
So kind of like the higher class of B movie.
Yeah, exactly.
So am I to understand that you think the movie is good, but maybe not great?
I think the kind of ridiculous story puts it
But is it that ridiculous?
I don't know. It's
to me, it's more grounded than. I mean, we recently watched Ralph Bakshi's Wizards, and if you look at other fantasy films of yore, they can go pretty much to the point of there isn't really a plot.
Yeah, that's true.
The fact that this had a flashbacks and kind of keeping certain things close to the chest until it was time to reveal them, I think was pretty good. If you had because going in, did you know it was about immortals or anything like that, or what was your perception?
I knew it involved some kind of tournament. Of,
well, that's not wrong.
And there are people who, when you cut off their heads, energy explodes out of the neck hole. And
right.
That's all I knew. I didn't know they were immortal. And I didn't know it was it wasn't like a Heroes thing where it's these random people are all of a sudden just connected. It's no, there's this one very, very specific group of people that will absolutely massacre themselves.
Yeah, no, it's the predestined thing, because the thing about Highlander 1 is, I think, what's another thing that's cool about it is everything we just listed, but also the fact that it's a complete story, and there's no way you would ever want to continue this story because there's nowhere to go. Because as the phrase goes, start at the most interesting point in the character's lives, and it's well, we could show him slowly building up, but why not just show him when he actually has the final confrontation, and then we'll tie this back to his origins and why this is the arch enemy. You know?
It's again the Watchmen effect, not to tease potential future projects, but the fact that when the story ends, it's and that's it. This is the most significant thing, and it's wait, but we have more. It's what? But why though?
But I don't understand.
I set up all of the plot lines and mysteries and questions, and then by the end, all of them were answered.
And I'm thinking about this movie. Kind of, we've kind of talked about the ending, kind of giving our thoughts ahead of time of what we think of some of the sequels at the very least. So
yeah.
So going to it, it's like again, my memory was like, yeah, it's kind of an okay movie. Christopher Lambert, he's kind of just a bad actor. But then I was like, no, Christopher Lambert's not a bad actor. He's just a very he's very interesting because he has those really deep intimate, passionate kind of emotions that he doesn't really have to go big and hammy with. Mm-hmm. But he's got that kind of childish wink charm to him where it's he's very charming and likable, but it's also just oh, I feel this man's pain every inch of it. And then when we were watching it, I was like, yeah, the accents, it's a little cringe. And then I think we got to the second movie, then you, Nathan, were like, I love his voice so much. And then we got to the further movies. You're like, I went back and I think I judged Christopher Lambert too harshly. He's actually a really good actor in comparison to all of this.
Yeah, that first movie, I was like, all right, he has some good moments, but he's mostly just doing ham. And then later on, you kind of go, I need to circle back because it's that I think seeing how the writing of his character gets worse and worse, it accentuates how his performance really does help carry it.
Oh, yeah, because in 3, where it felt like the most noticeable, I just felt like he wasn't into it.
No.
He wasn't there.
No.
Even in Endgame, I feel like he was giving more of a shit. Probably because of the ending of that. But in 3, Christopher Lambert, when he's not giving a shit, it made 3 the worst.
Yeah, half of his scenes when he walks off frame, he looks like he is actually just disinterested, and that's the final take he's gonna do for the day.
Because again, we're having this conversation. I made my ranking on my phone already, but the scary thing is that when I think about it, you could make a debate that The Source is more easy to watch in part than 3. Oh. 3 was so bad. We're not at 3 yet. We have to stick with the first one. Right? Something that surprised me, because I had only ever seen the director's cut, talking about little underrated things of this movie, all the flashbacks with his surrogate daughter aren't there. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, but that's the heart and soul of the movie.
That's if you don't have that, you literally don't understand the nature of their relationship.
Yes, because it's are they old lovers?
It's just
or...
she's just his secretary, and then his final parting words to essentially before his death are to her, and recalling something that is clearly shared and sentimental, and it's what?
Why would you cut any of this?
Why? It's so compelling.
Because going from the start, we start at a wrestling match.
Yeah.
But what's immediately great about this movie, and the next movie, the director's cut, the Renegade cut, also has this where Russell Mulcahy was just really good about transitioning. The shots, the images he would use to edit to the past, or the images he would use to anytime you would transition was absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah.
And it was clearly him where he's I don't have a lot of money, but I have the skill and I can make something that is cheap look actually really cinematic and good.
Yeah, and it's also that the cinematographer of the movie is the creator of Steadicam. So it wasn't around at this time, but it was when he was experimenting with it.
Yeah. Well, because you can tell when it's steady following him or going through the crowds. It's very impressive.
Yeah, and that over panning shot in the wrestling arena was so unique and not done in that time that they were people aren't gonna understand how we got this shot, so we're gonna edit in helicopter sounds, so you're just oh, they had to use a helicopter because we couldn't reveal the trade secret that we had used a really good dolly with essentially Steadicam.
That's a really awesome story.
Yeah.
The fact that they were no, we need to make sure no one's onto us yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really good. And then we get this duel in the parking garage. It's really good and atmospheric, and then there's the bit where the other guy starts flipping, and I'm I know that's only the director's cut, but I kinda unironically love it.
Well, it's also, so I noticed this the second time watching through.
Yeah.
But he flips away from him. It cuts back to Christopher Lambert desperately looking for his sword.
Yes.
And then it cuts back, and he's running after him. Then it cuts back to Christopher Lambert, and then when you cut back to the guy, he's flipping again.
Yes.
And it's to what purpose?
Theatricality and deception. But he takes his head, and we get this cool kind of stuff where we get them investigating him, yeah, well, you collect antiques. This is an antique sword.
Yeah.
You know, what's going on? We get all that, and then of course, you know, that just leads into the whole introduction to the female love interest.
Yeah.
Who is really good, but again, like, given the way the movie does the flashbacks, like, his past wife is so much more of an emotional, just, like, gut punch.
Oh, absolutely.
And you're just the whole time going, please, I don't want you to have another failed love. I've had enough of that.
Yeah,
for many lifetimes.
It's really an interesting how they're just kind of stuck together, the reveals for certain plot points.
Yeah.
Because, like, as you understand more and more that he's immortal, you understand that he is kind of trying to distance himself, but also optimistic towards this present-day love interest.
Yeah.
And as you're understanding that, you're seeing more of his life, and you realize, oh, wait, there's something, like, really traumatic happened to him, and, like, after hundreds of years, he's deciding to make the risk of making that same mistake at the exact wrong point in his life.
Yeah, he's doing it at the point when the gathering is at its peak, and then the Kurgan's basically about to kill him.
Where he's like, maybe I don't have to worry about, you know, my culture as an immortal. Maybe it isn't the most important thing in the world. And it's like, no, it is.
No, it is.
You need to focus up.
Yeah, and I really liked that. I really like that. You know, just the Kurgan as a bad guy is just really good. Like, from the moment we see him, it's like, yeah, what if we just had Clancy Brown clad in, like, a saber-toothed tiger fur on, like, a demon horse, and, like, lightning flash behind him? I'm like, I'm instantly scared of you.
Yeah, and he's got, like, the Final Fantasy, like, zipped-up leather arm sleeve.
Oh, in the present, yeah. Yeah. He it's so good, because this is what I love about movies made in the 80s. They were like, hey, we need to translate this fashion to this fashion if the character has time traveled or is long lived or something, and so they just immediately go like, we're making him look so fucking cool, like he's a fucking warlord of the streets, bitch.
Yeah,
like, he's a motorcyclist, he's the warlord of the streets, just like he conquered China with the Mongols or whatever, and it's like, oh, okay. But Clancy Brown's great. I think this is one of his first roles. It's definitely the earliest live action role I've seen of him.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is because he's so young. But he's also so enormous, and it's so funny because he's a voice actor. It's like, yeah, that man's like 6'6", and it's like, oh Jesus.
It's so funny because whenever I watch something animated and it's like a voice actor that I really know, I'm like, I'd be really interested to actually see a performance from him and how he would deliver these lines if he was acting it out. But I also kind of go, well, they're just voice actors, so how good is their live action acting? Then you have someone like Clancy Brown, and it's like, you know what it is, bitch.
I mean, I literally translate what I'm physically doing into my voice, you know, so you completely understand. But yeah, we get like this classic story, like fighting the Kurgan, and then Sean Connery is in this movie, and he's the mentor figure who dies, of course. Like, this is like Ben Kenobi and Luke, but it's great because you get these really emotional scenes where he's like bonding with him and he's running and he's like, "That's the quickening," and you're like, "Oh, I'm gonna cry." They're brothers in arms.
It's when they do the just happy slow motion run on the beach, I immediately transitioned to Rocky 3.
Yes.
It's like, oh, Rocky and Apollo Creed. I love platonic gay shit.
That's platonic. the Triple H Shawn Michaels effect.
Yeah.
You know, where it's like, exactly. I'm pretty sure you guys aren't into each other, but, you know, I support your friendship. But it's just, but yeah, no, like, I don't know what it is, but Highlander, like, every time we get to that scene, and it's like, so if it comes down to just us, you take my head? And then Sean Connery doesn't answer, and I'm all like, fuck you. That is not okay. I don't even like to think of the possibility of a Ramirez-Connor McLeod face-off.
See, that, like...
I almost feel like that would be a movie right there. You know what I mean?
I was gonna say, if they do end up making a Highlander remake, I know they're just gonna ape the original, but if they wanted to be, you know, new and innovative, I would have it be so that the Ramirez is essentially the final villain.
Yeah.
And it's great because you see it from the start, and you're like, oh, it's such a stereotype of, you know, brothers turned enemies and, like, destined for one final battle. And it's like, no, but we're gonna take this simple, cliched concept and we're going to add as much like depth and good writing as we can to make it compelling and
the Prince of Egypt.
Yeah,
just do the Prince of Egypt. It's like, oh boy, yeah,
absolutely. It's like, listen, I understand this type of story. I know they're gonna have to like fight and it won't end well, and it's like, yeah, but
it's like how the first hour of Ben-Hur is just like, don't you care how much Ben-Hur and Masala are friends and how their cultures and positions of status are alienating them from each other? And it's like, I don't need this much time because it hurts.
God.
It's so bad. But yeah, so I love like this montage is amazing. Like, probably one of my favorite parts is just the whole train. It's I think Batman Begins kind of was aping. I know this has been done with like mentors doing this, but the feel of this one was very like, he's training him, but we know like that relationship's immediately gonna end like right after he knows everything. And so the Kurgan kills Ramirez and rapes his wife, but they keep that ambiguous, which makes it when Clancy Brown actually like delivers that line to Christopher Lambert, it's like, oh God, I kind of figured that happened, but the fact that you have confirmed it for him, oh God.
Yeah, again, it's like, it's this thing where, again, they're flying into the cliche of, oh yeah, what's the worst thing you could do to him? Oh, what if he like raped his wife? And then they like actually build up to it, and it's like, no, that's so simple. And it's like, yeah, but it is. Think about it. It would be pretty devastating. It's like,
yeah, because he's thought of it one way for hundreds of years. And then it's like, no, what if like your entire perception of your relationship with this woman, which is the only thing holding you to the past, what if I just put a spin on it? It's now you can't stop thinking about it and how you could have stopped it. And it's just like, wow, thanks, perfect. And
also, I love his spinning the sword around his chest practicing bit. That's very unsettling.
That was very unsettling. Yeah, I think the villains of Highlander, with a few exceptions, are just slowly just a downwards curve.
Yeah.
Of just like, oh, you have some menace to you, and then it just
you have some menace. You have a good dash of ham, and it's like, oh, you have a little bit more than a dash of ham.
Yeah, it's more ham than menace.
Oh, you're actually a little wackadoodle. Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So Highlander 1, like, he fights the Kurgan. He wins. He avenges his master. He gets the prize. He is understanding of all humanity, but he is mortal. So it's so good because the ending of it is he has that balance between God and man. You know what I mean? Like, if he just became a god who was immortal, it'd be like, oh, he's just all powerful. Okay. But he's human, so he actually gets to like value his life.
Yeah.
But he has, and it's just, it's such a weird but good ending to finding out like what the prize is.
Yeah.
Where you're like, it's literally just like omniscience.
Yeah. And I think
at the same time,
I think it's one of the best presentations of what enlightenment looks and feels like. Just getting like those shots from around the world and how he's like perceiving everything that's happening,
and like the way that scene with where he feels the elk, like feel his heart race, and it's just like. Yeah. What the fuck? And it's so weird. In the first movie, there's like that where he's like in touch with other beings, and then there's him being underwater. That stuff never gets referenced again in any Highlander thing. Maybe in the TV show, but we'll get to that. Where so it was really interesting how, I don't know, that like I think the whole thing like with this movie, we were debating like the rules about like fighting on holy ground and like analyzing that. But I think like because it's just one movie and it's so more spiritual. Yeah. And like they're just immortal. Why? God. Yeah. That's why they can't fight on holy ground. And then what's the end goal? Like that touch of godhood. So when it's more ambiguous, the story doesn't have to explain where the immortals came from.
And I think also just the reaction it generates is just very interesting, because you have basically getting the prize is like being elevated to the height of human evolution, and like, this is the most perfect form that our kind will ever take on.
Because he has no anger or like jealousy, because he just knows a person. He's like, oh, I understand why I therefore do not feel angry at you.
And it's like, it's bits of that I think a lot of people could be like, that's a little weird. I don't think that would be like an evolutionary advantage. I don't think that should happen. And it's like, well, that's just because currently things are fucked and we aren't like evolved enough to have that openness and trust to like be in tune with other things.
Yeah, exactly. Which I think is more of an accurate spin on the whole we're not in touch with nature nowadays because we have technology. I think it's a deeper thing than that.
Yeah.
I think it's like this weird thing in human nature where we kind of prevent ourselves.
Yeah.
You know? So then we go into Highlander 2, which is regarded as one of the worst. The theatrical version was regarded as one of the worst films of all time. And to be honest, the theatrical cut for a theatrically released movie and nothing after the 80s, I would say, yeah, that's probably one of the worst movies of all time that had that big of a budget. That was like the Catwoman of its day, you know what I mean?
Yeah. It's interesting how the upgraded version is like...
the Renegade cut, yeah.
The Renegade cut is like... It kind of has like the Rogue One effect of solving a thing that isn't as big of an issue.
Oh, yeah. Where it's like, we're going to show you where the Immortals came from.
Yeah.
You didn't... Okay.
Yeah, and it's like... fuck, I'm losing it.
The Rogue One flaw is what the theatrical version of Highlander 2 is.
So I will admit that the Highlander 2 theatrical cut is horrifically edited and paced, and just a downstep in every way. The theatrical cut, yes. The theatrical cut. And the Renegade cut fixes that with much smoother editing that feels a lot more like the original.
Yes.
The reveal of his wife's death and just the order of events being revealed is way better. But it's just... When he's like, but I can't make them aliens. That was the dumbest shit. So he's just going to be from the distant past.
Yeah. And so because they do it from the distant past, and especially because it clashes with the first movie, because it's like, we know Duncan grew up as a child with other children in the Scottish Highlands. He didn't just pop there the way he is.
Yeah.
So in the novelization, they had to correct the Renegade cut and say, no, they were basically reincarnated, but it's like, that wasn't in any other version of Highlander 2, you know?
And it's just how they add, again, certain things to the Renegade cut, where it's like, oh, well, you see, they were able to find out where he is and when to attack him because they've been viewing his life. And it's like,
yes.
Well, that works great if they're aliens, but if they're from the distant past, then time is completely relative. If you can go to the future, then you can just determine to go farther.
Yes, but again, that's kind of one of those things where it's like in the end of time, when they're like, oh, we're watching events on Earth as the Time War is killing us. I'm like, so fast forward a little bit. Like, why do you need to be watching it in real time when the world is ending? Like, why are you limited to see the future, but only for the real-time amount of time it takes to watch it? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like, that's not okay.
It's, just fast forward if you can, like, scry into the future.
Yeah, so it kind of created more problems.
Yeah.
But I think what it was it took away so much bad.
Oh, yeah.
And then part of the bad taken out was the cause for changing it. Mm-hmm. Like, the whole aliens thing is bad. But because they had to completely remove that, it created a different kind of problem that is technically preferable. Yeah. But, so...
And also just how they fixed the fucking sword fight.
Oh, yeah. Like how in the original... So the thing that I noticed was in the original, they spliced the two sword fights with a different continuity, like hair and swords together. Yeah. But when they removed them, I don't know if this wasn't in the original movie, but they didn't explain where the katana got to him.
Yeah.
So it's just like he just teleports into the room with the sword.
And the weird thing is...
So it's like, okay, well, you solved one continuity error, but there's another one still there.
And do you see how, for the Renegade cut, when it came out a couple years later, they actually went back and shot more material to bridge those two fights? Yeah, the truck fight scene is all reshoots from, 3 years later.
Oh my... 3?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
If I read that, I forgot that. That's terrifying.
Yeah.
They were like so Michael Ironside came back?
Yes. You can tell he's a little bit pudgier.
I have to rewatch that. That's so good.
Yeah.
He's like, all right, I'll shoot this truck fight scene, and then I'm done with this movie.
He's like, oh yeah, we didn't get paid for shit, so we didn't care. But when they called me back, the director was like, hey, listen, I'll buy you a sixer if you film this one scene for me. It's like, I'm on it.
Find the one they call Ramirez. Kill him.
Last up.
So Michael Ironside in Highlander 2
is a triumph.
It's so good. I wish I could act as good as this. Because, I would never not have a job.
Yeah.
Because Michael Ironside, another now voice actor, is the villain of part 2, General Katana, who's basically Zod. I mean, he's basically just General Zod.
Oh, for all intents and purposes.
Like it's the same character. Like, oh, he has made a rebellion on our planet and he took over and he's this general. And
honestly, I wish they had kept the Katana sent the Kurgan to kill him, and so each Highlander movie is just like a Naruto reveal where it's like, no, he was manipulated by him, who was manipulated by him.
Well, see, I would have actually gone with that.
Yeah.
Like, if we got to Highlander Endgame and it was like, no, I actually manipulated General Katana.
I am the Mandarin.
I am the Mandarin. And you're like, are you serious? Yeah, so General Katana, so it's kind of, this is hard to talk about because there's two versions of the movie.
Yeah.
But I think... Yeah, overall, the theatrical cut is kind of an abomination.
Yes.
And a lot of it is down to the editing.
Yes.
Like, you really don't think about it, but editing can make a movie so much better. Like, when I was thinking about, like, A New Hope, how, like, that got saved in the editing bay, and would have been, like, 3.5, like, hours, and most of it would be in the Sandcrawler or whatever. It was like, what?
Yeah.
And it's just, like... But because it had the right editing, given what they had, it was so much better. So in the Renegade cut... when the director's like, I actually like tried to make the transitions feel like the first movie, and I made it as realistic as I could. It's like, well, you know, there you are. I forgive you. Yeah. And it was to the point where we're watching and we're like, oh, the Renegade cut really isn't that bad. Like, I'm enjoying the Sean Connery stuff, and Christopher Lambert like de-ages into the long hair again. It's like, oh boy, yeah.
It's one of the goofiest fuck yeah moments.
It's so good. He's an old man doing like the sorry voice, like,
and it's so tragic.
It's so sad because he's like he's just like drinking in a bar because he's like, I pray every day to Shiva, let me die.
He's like, I've fucked things up in my saving the world, and the most important person in my life is gone. It's like, fuck you, old man.
I mean, in both cuts, that actually, think about how fucked up that is. So the sequel is so cynical. It's like, so at the end of the first movie, you found enlightenment and spirituality. So your enlightenment causes you to build a shield that actually cuts man off from nature. So your absolute truth from, like, the divine basically caused the world to be shit. So, great, perfect. So you're telling me that, like, it's better for him to be, like, less in touch with humanity and killing things and be immortal than it is for him to be a god and be able to die. And it's like, nope.
Oh, God.
You know what I mean?
The movie is just like, you know, this ability would have been magnificent if it was like 1,000 years earlier, but mankind has already fucked itself so much so that even if everyone became enlightened, you couldn't save yourselves.
Because he's enlightened, and it's like, so he's literally Buddha, he's literally Christ. Yeah. And then it's like,
he's Dr. Manhattan.
He's Dr. Manhattan, and then he goes down to Earth, and it's just like, oh, pollution's so far gone, even if I enlightened every person on the planet by physical touch, I would not have enough time before the pollution just killed everyone. So it is faster for me not to go meet every single person on the planet, but to build a space shield that will shield the entire planet from the sun. So it's even more cynical.
God. It's so bad. Oh, it's really bad, but really great.
But really great. Because ironically, too, for me, follows the spirit of one more to the point where if you take Endgame or the show as the follow-up to this, it's like, wow, that's... That doesn't feel at all like the first movie, even though you're focusing more on the ending of the first movie, you know?
And remember how in the theatrical cut, the cut away from the dirty fucking alley sex was, like, transitioned away from quicker, but then it went on longer, so it was grosser in the Renegade cut.
Yes.
But they used the romance music from the first movie where the theatrical cut didn't, and it's like, God.
And, yeah, we didn't mention it, but Queen does the music for the first movie. Mm-hmm. Like, they basically scored it. And then their themes, you know, they had that album of theirs where basically the songs, it was basically considered the Queen album because all of them were in the movie. But Who Wants to Live Forever, they have this beautiful, like, instrumental love version of that theme that is, like, so emotional when his wife dies. And then in the second movie, Renegade cut by the same director, he's like, you know what fits that the best? Just dirty fucking filthy alley sex. Just just like lifting or hiking your skirt up, and then just like there's trash bags, and then you just go into town. It's like, that's way better.
And he's like heard her name once, like,
yes,
like has known her for approximately 10 minutes. And he's just like fuck you in this dirty, filthy alley after I just murdered 2 monsters.
I think that is the thing, that like, no matter what they do with Highlander 2, is the love interest just is not interesting.
No.
And it's like, I understand they had to have him like age, and so it had to take place in the future. But the fact that it's not the love interest from the first movie, or his wife, it's just like, well, okay.
Yeah, really bad.
Yeah, not really developed. We get the porcupine guys, and
they're great.
There's something else. They have goblin gliders.
Good.
I really wish it was Willem Dafoe, but like CGI duplicate, like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
Oh God, no! One's Willem Dafoe, the other is Dane DeHaan.
Oh God!
Oh.
You're a fraud, Spider-Man. But so Sean Connery gets brought back.
Yes.
And he goes on these wacky side adventures that are really good. And he just gets brought back to life based on, like, I guess Connor McLeod getting the prize and using its power to bring him back. That's the only way I can rationalize it. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But he's great, but he just dies again. But this time he, like, telekinetically is, like, holding a fan up so that they can escape. And
really good.
And I'm like, this is unironically the best thing ever, because the bagpipes start playing, and it's like, oh God.
Yeah, I love the thing about Highlander 2 is how they have somehow mistaken Sean Connery for the Highlander.
I think they think that the title is about him.
Yeah,
they just think he's the Highlander.
They're because... like, well, Sean Connery is Scottish, you see. No, but he's playing a Spaniard, Egyptian person. He's like, nah, just give him the bagpipes. It's like, this isn't... Go watch the first movie.
Yeah, it's very bizarre.
And it's also this weird thing where they were like, we've already established that Connor is the chosen one, so power scaling wise, we can't have Ramirez be stronger than him, but I mean, just for a moment to make him real good, he briefly attains enlightenment before him and telekinetically saves them.
Yes.
And then dies.
And then dies.
Oh.
And then somehow he gets his katana out of the blown up room. That's what I'm talking about, that continuity error.
Yeah, it's yeah.
But we get this bit, and then, he dies, and then Connor faces Katana, and then beats him, and he says there can be only one. And I remember, like, in the first movie, you were like, I forget if you were like, that's stupid, or at first, or if you were going like, no, that has to get brought back in the other movies. Then I was like, oh, I don't know if they do. I think that's what it was.
I think I was like, the first time I heard it in the first movie, I was like, that's stupid. Then it comes back, I'm like, all right, that's pretty good setup. And then the last bit, I'm like, okay, that's really good. I want them to say that again, but I don't want them to spam it in every movie.
And then, as it turned out, they use it just the once in the second movie, and then it just gets used so much.
Yeah.
So going out of 2, we were like, hey, Renegade cut, that's like the second best so far. The theatrical cut's on the bottom. And then before we got to the third movie, or no, sorry, we did the third movie next.
Yeah.
Highlander 3, The Final Dimension, The Sorcerer. And this one's really lame because it's basically just... So the second movie ambiguously didn't happen, but then pretty sure it didn't happen. And then it's like, well, what if the way we followed the first movie... See, the end happened. Unlike later movies that say, well, the end didn't happen. But, like, this movie is like, well, no, see, the ending happened, but there were some guys trapped in a cave, and that's why they weren't a part of the game.
Yeah, see, they were exempt, They
were basically dead.
The laws of the universe were like, oh, there's no way these guys can ever be free, so I'll bend the rules so that they aren't involved. And it's like, they got free. They're like, oh, fuck, I'll take the prize back.
And we get this real shitty, just... C-grade Kurgan, C-grade first movie, C-grade sex scene. Like, even the one in the Renegade cut was at least better shot, even though it was, like, in a fucking alleyway, than the first movie having the best one. But the third movie's like, we're gonna show it more graphically, we're gonna show tits.
Yeah, it's like...
There's so much tits.
It's like an 80s version of the Saw 5 hotel manager rape scene, like his recording, like the dude.
Saw 4.
Yeah. Where it's the police officer going through the guys, and it's like, no, this hotel guy is fucking awful.
Yeah.
It's like that, where it's like, what if they just had filthy fucking, like, evil sex, and they were like, Okay, alright. Shit, Negro.
And then it's just a repeat of the first movie. And he has a kid, but the kid's, like, not in the movie at all. We get no scenes with them. And then at the end, he just gets kidnapped, like, as he's on the plane heading to meet him. God. And then we get the bit where the guy who took Mako's illusion powers, because he was Ra's al Ghul and he trained Connor McLeod, and he presumably helped him build his katana. And then it's like, well, I just killed him, so now I have his illusion powers. And it's like, now Highlander has become, we have special abilities that transfer, and not just, like, general supernatural power.
Yeah.
Like, not just, like, a general strength, but, like, no, I actually attained his special ability.
You know, for all the weird out there connotations you could take for the limits of Highlander magical abilities, you somehow decided to ignore the original idea of having a soul dragon. It's like,
yes.
Why did you just build up to that being the twist rather than just, no, you see, 10 things you didn't know about Highlander immortals. Number 1, they can actually do magic.
Oh.
Okay. Alright, that's a direction to go.
And so this movie is really shit. It's just really bad.
It's fucking awful. There are fans there who are like, oh, this should have been called Highlander 3, The Apology. Like, hashtag finally good Highlander 2.
Yeah. It's like this movie is way worse.
This is fucking awful.
Like, it's better than the theatrical cut of 2. I get. Well,
There are people who say that Batman v Superman is worlds above Man of Steel, or that Suicide Squad is the best of the DCEU. Where it's like,
or people who go, really, honestly, Black Panther's the best movie in the MCU. Unironically, it's like, oh well.
I disagree.
I disagree. But it's terrible. It's bad, really shitty. They do like a play on the whole Kurgan, the bad guy orders the prostitute scene, but they're like, what if we showed more of the sex, even though the first movie just cut away? And it's like, okay.
He tries to eat a condom. It's like, made me think of Team 4-Star when it's Bulma and Vegeta. You said you had protection. I was wearing my armor. It's like, oh, God.
But that's 3. It's the boss. So we'll should do the rankings at the end, or what we feel, and then.
But for now, it fell into the shit lake.
So then we got through the first episode of the show because I had Connor.
By sheer force of fucking will.
And then there was like 2 good scenes with Connor, and then
really good scenes.
And then we were like, okay, we're gonna watch 1 episode a season, and then it was like, we're just gonna watch the first and last episode. And so we start the last episode, and it's just. We couldn't even get through it. No. Like, we got about, I think, almost 30 minutes in.
Yeah, and then didn't we, like, just skip to the end?
Yes.
Because we were like, well, we can't say we just dropped it midway through. We'll see what the conclusion of the story is, but we don't really give a shit about the steps leading up to it.
Yeah. And it was awful. And we were like, wow, that's a wash. We watched
6 seasons and a spin-off.
Yes, that was such a bad show.
That was really bad.
That was like the shittiest version of Smallville ever.
Oof. Yeah.
That was like if you did Smallville on a fucking Power Rangers budget. Yeah. So it was real bad. And this introduced the concept of us going, we hate Duncan MacLeod.
Duncan MacLeod
He's garbage.
Is a wet sock.
He is everything Christopher Lambert is not. Charming, intelligent, angry, intense.
He is the boring white metrosexual male action hero ever, even though I don't think he's white, but I don't know.
No, that's the truth.
Yeah.
And so, God, that's bad. And then I forget how we did this. I think we watched one of the animated series next.
No, those we didn't get till the end.
That's right.
They were hard to find.
That's right.
So I think it was Highlander 4.
Endgame. So Endgame, Avengers Endgame. Highlander Endgame is like, we're going to merge the canon of the show and the movies. And it's like, but you directly contradicted it because you started out as a prequel to the first movie and then said, no, we're just doing our own thing.
But the other problem is, this movie is going to tie in the TV series and the movieverse together. And it's like, all right, well, here's the issue. 2 had to kind of retcon 1. 3 kind of retconned 2. So is this like, this is just a sequel to the first one? Or is it, no, this one and 2 happened, or no, it's the sequel. It's the sequel to the 3rd movie. It's like,
well,
there's not a Highlander cinematic universe. None of them are directly connected to each other.
Not necessarily not directly, but it is like the first 2 felt the most in line.
Yes.
But 3 could have been a prequel. Like, aside from the fact that they're like, he got the prize, it's like, well, but then more immortals appear, so for all I know, more immortals could appear. So it's almost like 3 could almost be like on its own, and then 4 is like, no, the TV show, and specifically most of the first movie, except when he got the prize. And it's like, what? And what about 3? No, because he also got the prize. Again. Oh yeah, by the way, best line from 2. And you sent those punks down here. And now I'm back to square one. Immortal again. Wonderful.
Christopher Lambert is a national treasure. I'm just sad he's not our national treasure.
I'm just wish he was in Hail Caesar for 30 more minutes.
Oh my fucking
Because he was so good.
He was absolutely incredible. I love...
We gotta watch Mortal Kombat.
I love that the director was like, listen, I know you're playing a Swedish director. No one knows what a Swedish accent sounds like, so just be like a mixture of German and French. He's like,
I couldn't do that. But we get to Endgame, which was the first sign of an improvement. Because we've been, like, including the show, 1, going down to 2, going down to 2, theatrical, going down to 3, going down to the show, because the show was that bad.
Yeah.
So we were literally the lowest Highlander could go, and they were like, you and I actually, as we were watching, going, everything with Connor and Jacob Kell, we were like into.
Yeah.
And everything revolving around Duncan and his love life was the most boring shit ever.
It's because...
But the Connor stuff was so good.
It's because the Duncan thing, it's like trying to be James Bond, but make you feel like she isn't just a dumb bimbo every time. Where it's like, oh, so Duncan has another love interest. It's like he doesn't have any kind of commitment. And it's like, nobody loved her so fiercely. They had gone through something really important together. It's like, oh, I wonder if she'll stick around.
I love that you said that because we were talking about James Bond.
Yeah.
So I totally can't wait for you to go, wow, I totally cared about the relationship between these two in this James Bond movie. And you look over at me and you're like, I know in the back of my head that this character that I actually really like, when these have all been just bimbos who disappear, I know that this character I care about has to come back, right? And I look into your eyes and I'm just like, there's no indication that that's the case. And you're just like, oh.
It's great. It's great because I know for a fucking fact there's 1 or 2 who's in multiple movies.
Yes.
And so each time it's one that I actually like, I'm like, is it this one?
It's like Russian roulette. You're just spinning it. You're like, listen, I'm begging you, please. Please tell me.
I really want to like this movie, but if the next one tells me it's irrelevant, can I really like this movie?
And God, it's so bad. Duncan's the worst, and he gets worse in this movie.
I need a James Bond multiverse into the Bondverse.
Oh God, yeah.
Where it's just like, oh, these two are very, very similar. It's just the only difference between these two versions is one of them is like it's like 1 pound heavier. It's like. What? That's why. How? What's the minimum requirement for creating a branching reality?
The most slight. And but the Connor stuff, I actually kind of liked the opening with his mom getting executed by Jacob Kell, and then he kills the only person Jacob Kell cares about, the priest, and he goes from this religious man to like the worst serial killer in history.
Also, you notice how all of the Highlander villains, they all have a K name, just like, we have the Kurgan, we have Katana, we have
Kel.
No, who's the third movie 3?
Oh, I don't remember. It's like Khan,
yeah,
something.
Khan. And then it's like, and then Jacob Kell. It's like, that's a cheat.
Listen, would it be any difference in his first name?
Yes.
No.
Yes, that's the point. Because you can't just use your last name for the regular name people refer
Tell that
as.
to Prince.
You can't just be Madonna.
Tell that to...
Not everyone can just be Madonna. All right?
Insert Inspector Gadget joke here.
Yeah, just because you suddenly have a claw doesn't mean that that's the entirety of who you are.
But...
Claw. One word.
Like Madonna. Go fuck yourself. But Jacob Kell becomes like, and actually pretty again, this is kind of a step up. I think the place it's most a step up is with Kell, because he's way better than the guy from 3, or even, I mean, I don't know, better than General Katana, I think, a little bit too.
Yeah,
like that's on the line though, because Michael Ironside's so good.
It's just it's it's a matter of your preference in ham.
Because this is the cold like snake ham.
Yeah, and then this is the ham, and it's like I don't know. Different strokes for different folks. Yeah, different strokes, different preferences.
Sure.
In a given moment, different context.
Yeah, well, Michael Ironside is better, but I want to establish that.
That's fair.
But it is close. But Kell's a good return to form. He's like, again, it's him and Connor. That's what I care about in this movie.
Yeah.
So the scene where they're in the graveyard is actually really great, where he basically, they are on holy ground and then they can't fight. So Jacob Kell, taunts him and then goes, "What's wrong? Don't you want to be inside me?" And I'm like, this is unironically the best thing I've ever seen.
Don't they cut it in the special edition where they're like,
oh no, yeah, well it's the sanctuary they go to.
Yeah,
they cut the line about
oh, I don't care about the rules. Oh man, what happens when you break the Holy Grail rule? Nothing.
and then that's so bad. And then I told you, no, in the show they implied that a volcano would go off because Pompeii exploded because immortals fought on Holy Ground. I'm like, that's stupid.
No, that's
but that's so good.
That's better than Fires of Pompeii. Look out of here.
Oh god. Yeah, and we kind of get this larger immortal mythos. And then they cut the bit of Jacob Kell getting 666 souls to become, like, the devil or something.
Yeah.
And they also fucking changed it so the love interest didn't get her head cut off and lived arbitrarily. And they just show the cut where, like, her necklace falls. And it's like, well, we didn't show her head fall. And it's like, but every other person, you didn't show their head fall. And we knew they died. Yep, but we just lied to you.
Why?
Because in the moment I looked at you and I was like, oh, they just couldn't show blood from a woman.
Why did they at the last minute decide to go, oh, we're gonna throw you off guard. You see, he spared her. Maybe he has mercy. And it's like, no, actually, it's just he's crazy. This time he does want to kill her. Him sparing her the first time meant nothing. It's like,
stupid.
Okay.
But yeah, the best scene in the movie is the Connor Duncan fight.
Yeah.
Where he's like, you have to kill me to become stronger because I have the soul power, and if you got that, maybe you could fight Jacob Kell, and you're younger than me, so you'd be the best option.
I will disagree to my dying day. Duncan should have been like, kill me. I'm a useless sack of shit.
No. Let me not say this on the record, Your Honor, but I'm saying it's not that it's like good, but it's at least like the way they did it was like, okay, for this like bad of a Last Jedi type plot point.
This is a moment of catharsis.
This is a moment of catharsis.
Like, with.
Yeah, it's like I actually feel like you tried to honor like the emotions of the character and this bond he had with someone who he's only had the first episode of the show in this movie, and I'm like, well, I didn't count the episode of the show, so given this movie, you did a pretty good job.
Yeah.
Good job, Christopher Lambert, because you're carrying, what's his name? Adrian Paul. Awful. Terrible. I would have preferred anyone.
An absolute plank. He is fucking wackadoo.
Really bad. Should have been Michael Rosenbaum. But
fucking wish.
So then he just beats Jacob Kell, and you get the moment of like Connor McLeod phased over him, and you're like, what the fuck is this?
You get some Christopher Lambert dubbing in. It's like, oh, they knew this was.
It's Splinter of a Mind's Eye. Remember that early Star Wars story where Ben Kenobi possesses Luke's body to beat Vader, and it's like,
remember when Comatose Luke possesses Jaden Solo and has him fight your face. That's fucking terrain to hope.
What the fuck are you talking about? What did you just say?
You were like, oh, I'm really interested in what other part of the Star Wars universe you're gonna make a comparison of that to, and then you realized I was referring to shit, and you were like, I don't appreciate this rabbit's trail that you're taking us off on, sir.
Your humor is not funny. I don't appreciate it. And I lost track. Okay.
So the final fight's pretty good.
It's alright. But this is a better than 3, and it's better than theatrical of 2.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
But Adrian Paul kind of weighs it down. So
I can't care.
I can't care about him at all. So there's Endgame. And then, did we watch the anime movie after, or we watched it before The Source?
Yes.
Yeah. So if I remember right, because I'd seen Highlander, The Source, and I was telling Nathan, like, no, listen, this is going to be, like, the very worst. Like, it's going to be Sci-Fi Channel original film. And it was just, like, just fear filled his eyes when I said that. And I was just like, well, no, you see, it's also got some pretty hammy, funny bits, too. So The Source might be the so bad it's good movie for you.
I feel like the newer movies become more and more like the shitty Jaw movies, where, like, oh god, there's a severed limb, and it's like, well, yeah, it's clearly severed limb.png. Like, you don't have, like...
Yeah, like, in the second movie had so much, like, interesting, like, production design. Like, it was a stylized big movie. Like, it was an epic production, you know? But then, for this, you literally get, like, worse than Smallville motion blur sword fights for super speed.
My god.
And also, this is where there can be only one officially became a fuck you. Is when the Immortal goes up the elevator, and then the password to get in is not by vocal recognition, but by saying, there can be only one. And then it unlocks, and it's like, why didn't you just make that by person's voice? Why is it just the most common thing Immortals say to each other?
Listen, it's okay that it was just a cheesy 80s catchphrase. You didn't have to, like, try to add depth in the one level of Highlander where there was levity.
You know what that reminded me of?
What?
Stephen Moffat going, I have to explain why the show's called Doctor Who. Nobody knew why it was called that. And I'm like, dude, no, we understand why it's called that. It's because it's the fucking name of the show.
It's totally fucking fine.
Like, the title doesn't have to be something that is in universe.
No! Far from it. Yes. Far from it, dude.
So, you know, that. And it's just like, God, in this movie, we get fucking Duncan MacLeod on a rooftop like he's Batman. Rooftop PNG.
Oh boy, yeah.
And then he just saves a woman from getting raped because this is every superhero movie ever. And then there's the guy who goes up, there can be only one. And then the Guardian shows up. And Nathan, what did you think of the Guardian? Because I knew what he was going to be like. You did not know what this performance was going to be like.
He's
the illustrious history of Highlander villains, and then we get this.
He's like if you took the CGI face filter device that they used when they were filming for that CGI orc in the Hobbit trilogy. Like, you were like, what if instead of making him look like an orc, we just had, like, a caricature of him in his, filming cage, and then they were like, well, we'll take that design, but we kind of want to add like a Pan's Labyrinth aesthetic to it, so it's like kind of Uncanny Valley, but not really. And then it's like, I urge you to go fuck yourself.
But his performance was carrying the movie. He was carrying the movie, man.
I disagree.
Really? You don't think he had like some jaw-dropper hysterical moments? Like, did you find him funny or just pure annoyance?
It's...
Because there was points later on where I saw that it was just you it was you totally suffering, but you were like looping around because it was like he had pummeled you so bad that it got to the point where you're like, I'm deriving pleasure from seeing you appear.
He started off as an annoyance in a story that I otherwise enjoyed, And then I came to see that there were such flaws in the stories that his annoyance became, like, nothing. You know, I didn't really recognize it. I was like, yeah, I was kind of neutral on him. And then when I saw the show was so fucking shitty, I looked back to his character and was like, you know, in the end, this show didn't have any good concepts, but you were the one thing that remained fairly consistent, so my hat's off to you on that.
For that, I applaud you. No, unironically, I think Mythos is a good actor. Like, we saw a bit of him on the show, and then in this movie, he's definitely the best actor of that group. Like, he's acting circles around Adrian Paul and the guy with the Pope hair.
Oh, yeah, no fucking contest.
Yeah. He's just acting like circles around him, so I'm like, oh, okay, well, that's worth some praise, I suppose.
Yeah.
I understand why he's a fan favorite character. This movie fucking sucks because it basically says, you didn't have to kill each other. If you had just come here, you would have gotten the prize, and the prize is, you get to have kids. Peace and happiness.
Every day.
Nothing every day.
Who wants to live forever?
Go fuck yourself. And they play that horrible cover of it after they beat the cannibals.
Oh my god.
Yeah. And then the worst part of the movie was when they encountered the Guardian's other half, the Watcher, who's like this bloated, like Jabba was eaten by a genie.
God, yeah, he's if you did Will Smith's genie in Jabba the Hutt effects. It was like, yo,
it left us cursed. And I'm like, oh Jesus, you're a ball sack. What the fuck? This is the Guardian gets cursed, and what does he get? Oh, I get super speed. I'm like the bestest ever. What do you get? I look like a ball sack. And it's like, go fuck yourself. Yeah, guess I got the best end of that cock.
The Guardian is, I am this Dark Souls 2 boss if they fucking gave him like super autism. It was just like, what the fuck are you doing?
It was crazy. But yeah, there's another love interest of Duncan, and we set up the one in the fourth movie. This pissed me off, because I'm like, listen, I didn't like the person in the fourth movie. The chick in Endgame was bad, but I would rather she come back rather than me have to find someone just as bad.
I had glazed over her, because I was like, this movie is so fucking shitty, and like, you do nothing to improve it, so I don't care if you come back or not. And then when I get to the next movie, I'm like, you know, it's not that this chick in and of herself is worse. It's just that this character would literally make more sense to put in there.
It was so stupid. It was so bizarre. Because apparently the apocalypse happened, and I don't know how many years it's supposed to be, but this apocalypse happens enough where he has time to get in a whole new love interest and then meet her again. In that time, there's been like 30 years, there's human characters who were like 60 who are still 60, and I was like, what the fuck?
It's
really stupid. But this one's just like a meme. It's real, but it's a meme or just like shit, the absolute worst. Like, I think it's worse than Highlander 2 theatrical.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think it's worse than that. Yeah, the Source was like, after Endgame kind of improved, like the Source just fucked it into oblivion. They just absolutely destroyed it, because the end is like, oh, they get the prize, but the prize, everyone could have gotten it. All of you could have. That is so stupid.
It's really not.
He does the thing where he spins around the Guardian and it drills him into the ground.
That's some fucking Tasmanian devil bullshit.
Yeah. Yeah, that was the Source, and then we watched the anime, didn't we?
Yeah.
Because we wanted to end on a good note. We were like, please, after the Source, please let this end better.
And we got The Adventures of Colin McLeod.
Yeah.
Who, as much as I love the touching, heartwarming mentality of him adopting his master's sword, can I get like one Highlander story where he's like, the only way I can truly achieve my peak performances if I go back to my roots and use my Highlander weapon. It's like, nope, they're all Scotsmen who use katanas. It's like, how oddly specific.
That's like such bad, like we cloned this character. That's like Rey to Luke Skywalker levels of just like, that's transparently the same.
God.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where it's just like, I mean, the fact that you're a MacLeod and you are a Highlander, in fact, I would be tied more to it if he did have a Scottish weapon.
Yeah.
Because the fact that Connor inherited it was like a big deal. Like,
yes.
I don't think immortals switch their weapons that often, and so it was a tribute to his master. But this is like, what if we just have them?
It's like when you go to the Star Wars prequel trilogy, you're like, yeah, now you see in this scene.
Oh, the Jedi robes were just, or no, Obi-Wan's robes are what all the Jedi wore.
Well, yeah, there's that, and it's just like, oh look, it's Yoda conducting his training, with all the younglings wearing the shielded helmet for those very specific orbs to practice dueling, and it's like, I thought that was like a unique thing.
I thought they literally threw that together on the spot. You literally took the creative imagination out of this world.
I didn't think that Han Solo, the morally ambiguous, tough super space pirate, wasn't from a planet of rough, super violent, space pirates. I thought he was unique, I didn't think he was just par for the course in his culture.
We'll get to that when we read through the Han Solo books, because I want to do that, including Timothy Zahn's One Scoundrels. So you have the Han Solo novels, and then the older.
I'll read fucking anything by Timothy Zahn.
I know you will.
That man's great.
And so I think we watched the first episode, and then we were like, we're gonna watch the episode where Connor MacLeod's actually in it, which I thought was like the third episode, but I was wrong.
Yeah. And
Connor MacLeod basically goes, so the plot of this is it's in the far future, it's a post-apocalypse again. And that all the immortals are just become Jeditors, which are these monks, and all of them are just like, we're Jeditors. And then they're like, okay, we just all of us, implausibly, maybe we're all just tired of fighting. I would like to have seen that story. They're all just like, we're not going to fight, so nobody has to die, and nobody gets the prize. And then Cortan, who's dressed in black armor like he's Ruber in the Quest for Camelot scene, where all the knights look perfect and he looks demonic, is like, I wonder who the bad guy is.
How many...
He with his black fucking sword just goes, I refuse, I claim ownership of the prize. And I'm like, can he do that? He just has to say, I don't agree, and he's exempt? What? Why? I don't understand.
Why is it that every weird fantasy sci-fi mixture is like, the best part of Star Wars was how the bad guy came from this civilization of kind but apathetic warrior monks who were just too fucking lazy to stop their own demise, and that happened real recently, and this is their redemption. And it's like, listen, Star Wars did it great, but like Aragon didn't, Highlander didn't. What the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah.
It's so strange.
Really absolutely bizarre. And then in this version, Connor says, nope, I actually break my oath. And they're like, you can't. And then Connor MacLeod just does it with no consequences. And I'm like, that is either the stupidest or most badass thing ever. He's literally like, listen, I know this oath literally makes me judgmentable by God, but I will break my oath, and you will see that I'm so badass I couldn't give a shit what happens to me, as long as I just kill this son of a bitch. And they're like, no, but we can't ever break free, so you're all cowards. No. So they knew this the whole time, and there's episodes where they're like, Colin, listen, we still need to survive, we can't like sacrifice our lives. And it's like, really? Why haven't you helped out? Yeah, it's really bizarre.
It's very strange.
But it was better than the actual live action TV show.
Oh,
I think we said,
by insane magnitudes.
Yeah. And then the anime movie, Search for Vengeance, I believe it's called.
Yes.
Which we were like, okay, this could also be one of the worst. But then I also was pulling out for like, maybe it's like the second best. I'm like, I have hope that this is going to end us on a good note. And then we watched Highlander Search for Vengeance, and at first we were like, okay, it's kind of like cheesy, like anime, like the opening, he like fights the screaming man with a chainsaw sword that he rides like a motorcycle. And it's like,
People really like Frank Miller's The Dark Knight Returns. It's like, what if we're like weird, semi-furry street thugs? It's like, oh, oddly specific. That's certainly an aesthetic.
And we were at first like, oh, another post-apocalyptic story. And then this tells like this amazing like story of vengeance where this is what I think would make a really good, if they remade Highlander, do this story. I think this would be like that cool reboot you could do to spin it. Where it's like kind of similar story of like them going through the ages, but whereas, you know, he met the Kurgan and then he didn't meet him the second time he showed up. So then they had to have like the final clash. Well, they might have had some off screen, but it's like that where it's like where you know, that kind of story, but like they do it where it's weaving throughout time, so it's, you know, all that. But anyway, so this one was cool, especially as a companion to the first movie, because it's like, oh, and that one, the Kurgan, he's like this monstrous feral thing. And on this one, you know, he's a refined emperor. He's the epitome of class. I have women just naked all around me.
Yeah.
Have whatever I want. And then Connor McLeod was kind of like, I'm kind of just a good person who wants to get by. And then in this movie, who is he? He's Colin.
Oh yeah, because then the animated series was Quentin.
I think we were calling him.
I think we were calling him Colin.
It's fine. This is Colin. That's Quentin. It's McLeod's, and he's just like full of just vengeance. He's like, I'm just gonna fucking kill you.
Like his fashion barely changes. He's just like, I will fucking murder you. Are you gonna like train to be a better fighter? Are you gonna like learn anything else in like the years where you won't be able to find me? It's like, no, I'm just coming after you.
Yeah, we see them in World War II at one point.
Yeah.
Which I actually kind of liked.
Oh yeah, it was great.
I love how this just kind of fully embraced, because with animation they didn't have to worry about budgets. They could show just a bunch of crazy shit.
Oh yeah.
So like the way they were going through the time periods of them meeting was like them going, yeah, they would have to cut out half of this in the movie, whereas now we can just do all of it. So I really liked that, and it was kind of like all those classic 80s post-apocalyptic animes. Like there was definitely like Akira and shit like that kind of influencing it.
Yeah.
But then just like the whole build-up with like the virus being released and like him going up to finally like beat him, and like he cuts through his sword.
I really hope,
you know,
if they do a remake that is actually like big budget and well done, for the explosions they won't go for hyper realism and just CGI it. I want them to actually use fireworks like in the original. It's not like an explosion per se, it's just this like ethereal burst.
Yeah. There's like the great thing in this where the less immortals you've killed, the less power you have.
Yeah.
Your wounds take longer to heal. Mm-hmm. Because he gets his head split down the middle. Doesn't take his head off, he just splits it down to his skull. It takes him like presumably months to like recover inside Stonehenge.
Yeah.
Or like based on how fast the planets and stars were moving, I'm like, that has to be at least like maybe like 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
So that was interesting to see how he slowly got better at surviving till in the future he could just fall like thousands of feet and not die or whatever. So I did like that kind of subtle world building. And then it was just satisfying as hell for him to kill the bad guy and just be that badass who just didn't really give a fuck about anything. But then it's like, no, but you do though. And he's like, damn it, I do though.
It's so funny because he has this weird story arc for the sword where the villain uses the same sword each time and he uses a different one each time, and each time it breaks.
Yeah.
But like his first encounter, it breaks immediately. The second time it takes one hit and then it shatters on the second. The second one hits and then it like blocks for a bit and then it breaks, and then the katana doesn't break, but he still gets beaten before he can really test it, and then this time the katana just cuts through it. It's like, what a weird way to progress, how like it's just a weird subtle way of showing the power scaling.
But that's so cool.
Yeah,
because that's like it's not the just telling us, it's like showing us through like subconscious, like, well, technically if I had thought about it, yes, it seems like his sword's breaking less quickly, but I thought that's just because it's a movie and so it stretches moments out, but that is wrong. It's like it's actually showing his development, and
it's not this weird like to keep Colin more miserable than all the other immortals. He doesn't have like this comforting mentor who he bequeaths this sword off of. It's literally just through trial and error he has learned that Japanese steel folded 1,000 times is the peak of weapons development. And he's like, this is the one fact of the universe I can cling to, and it's like, yeah, that works.
But yeah, it was
also, do we want to talk about his mage friend from Stonehenge?
Oh, yeah, I kind of repress him.
I did
I think until you said that, I only had, like, a Vegas, like, oh, he's there for, like, 10 seconds.
Yeah, I know he, like, phases in and out. He kind of seems like a cross between, like, Smurfs and Wizards design.
Yeah.
Where he's, like, old-fashioned animation.
Yeah.
But then sometimes he possesses animals and talks to them.
That was bizarre. That was kind of the Highlander 3. I have this power as an immortal. What? Okay. It was a little bit of that, but better, of course.
It was, again, this weird thing of, it's a delicate balance between being an alien and being just a different species that happens to live on the same planet.
Yeah.
But like
X-Men, yeah, and so the Search for Vengeance I quite liked, and I think we consider it the second best for a lot of reasons.
I love the dub too. At first I didn't.
I didn't, but it won me over. Yeah. So I think, what would you say your final thoughts are on the franchise as a whole, now that you've seen basically all of Highlander, skipping, of course, the television episodes, because fuck you.
It's a series that I would say, by and large, is not good.
That was the truth, yeah.
But each badness separates itself well enough where even if you're a completionist, you can just say, no, I'll cherry pick these movies. They're basically anthologies. There's no overarching story that I need to worry about. They're not really sequels to each other.
It's true. That's so fucking funny.
Like, I'd totally just buy Highlander and Search for Vengeance. And maybe if there's like a Highlander 2 Despecialized that keeps the best of both worlds, I get that.
Someone get on that, or I'll make it.
Someone please get on that. I don't know how to clean up the picture. Because the theatrical cut is such shit quality.
I think that's gone. You lost that.
Those reels are gone. There is no refining that.
Yeah, no, it was transferred to digital a long time ago as the director's cut. That other version has never been digitized.
It was like
it's never been digitized, my friend.
It was like for the copy of Star Wars Holiday Special I got for Salvatore. It was from a copy of a taped recording of the Chicago broadcast of the episode, because that is the highest quality recording they have left. Because it's like everything else you have, like, this has the least amount of like static and like delays from the satellite signal, and it's like, oh god. Yeah,
they purged it. It's incredible. It's incredible. It just aired and people were like, no, I know that was a thing, you son of a bitch, I swear to God. It's like, but they can't prove it. And then it's like, no, somebody just managed to capture the only version that is close to being like an actual released version.
It's like what I hope will happen with the Sonic movie, where it's like 15 years from now, people will be like, no, I swear there was like some kind of version around that was like way shittier, and it like
looked no, that was actually an internet myth.
And it was like, no, there's actually no concrete evidence that's a thing at all.
That could be a fan-made trailer, because people think because people made the fan-made trailers off the shitty first one, but in this understanding of events, it's like, no, he leached off them, and it's like, wait, no, that's a lie. I swear to God,
that's just a creepypasta. No, you're lying to me.
You're lying. Yeah, so to me, like, Highlander is just, I think kind of like one, Search for Vengeance, and then I'll recommend Renegade Cut of 2. I think for a very visually interesting, but also very insanely hammy and entertaining movie, Highlander 2, the Renegade Cut's not a bad choice.
I gotta agree.
So I'd say, like, if you want a trilogy, it's 1, Renegade Cut of 2, and then Search for Vengeance, because that kind of closes it all out in the far future. By no means watch 3.
No.
By no means watch 5. Honestly, just probably skip Endgame as well. But
I mean, if you're
desperate,
if you're having a drink, snorting some coke, you're just surfing cable, and you happen upon it, you don't need to flee.
You can take a jaunt away.
I can't say it's a waste of your time at that point. Like, if you don't have any plans, it's not so offensive of like, I'd rather do nothing than do that.
Wow, that's true. Yeah, so I'd say 1, Search for Vengeance, 2, Renegade, Endgame, Theatrical 2, 3, 5.
I'd agree on that.
So I'm glad. I love the first movie a lot, though.
Yeah,
I now cherish it as a classic.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, and makes me want to watch more Christopher Lambert, which is great.
Absolutely.
And I found a anime spin-off of a live-action American franchise that wasn't like shitty, which was Search for Vengeance, where it's one of the best ones. Like, that just blows my fucking mind. That actually bamboozles me.
What an industrious empire.
Yeah. So, yeah, that would be my thoughts on Highlander. I don't know if you guys want us to do, like, a commentary for one. Sure, but...
it's an option.
We're going to be covering Hellraiser next, so tune in for that.
Yeah.
Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.
There can be only one.